What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. So we are taking a brief break from the kind of shop redo project because the toolbox I ordered won't be here for another week or two. So you guys will see the rest of this project and the floor and everything probably in like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. So for now, we're going to be jumping back onto the R100GS project. So last time I rode the bike, everything was going great except for we got back and we noticed there was a ton of fork oil that had come out of this right-hand side. So it kind of came up through here, started dripping. I mean, it dripped all the way down on back onto the fairing and everything. So it's leaking quite badly. So the name of the game today is going to be replace both side fork tube seals. So getting this thing onto its center stand and kind of positioned in a way to work on that front wheel is a little bit difficult on the lift. So what I'm going to do is just back it up and we're going to work on it right here in the center of the shop. Went ahead and got the front wheel and the front caliper pulled off as well. Super simple. I've showed that in a previous video. So I'm kind of winging this. I don't really have great directions, but it seems to be super simple. I'm going to pull out the center bolt on the top of the tubes here. That should be the oil fill. That should allow kind of air into the system so that when I undo the bolt on the bottom, it'll let all the fluid drain out. Otherwise, there'll be kind of a vacuum in there and it'll drain, but super, super slow. So that's going to be one of the next things I do. I did read online that you can put the axle back in here and it makes it much easier to get those bottom bolts out. So that's a little tip. While that's draining, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the brace. And then I need to undo this bottom clamp, get the gator out of the way. And if I'm not mistaken, that should allow us to pull these sliders all the way down and out, which will give us access to the seals where we're replacing, which are kind of right behind this little boss section here. So let me see if I can get these draining and we'll see if we can't get these things pulled out. And just like that, the slider comes right off of the bottom. There was quite a few forum posts that I was looking at that made it seem like you had to disassemble way more than this to be able to do these fork seals. A couple of posts I saw even had you removing like the fairings and the gas tank and all of that stuff to be able to access these. I'm not exactly sure if that's just a different model or what, but about 3 steps in and the sliders are already out. So I'm gonna get these set up on the workbench and we can see what it's going to take to get these seals pulled out and the new ones tapped in. Now that we're over here on the bench, should be relatively straightforward with a couple of flathead screwdrivers. Just be careful not to mar anything up. We're going to pull this little dust seal off the top. Like that. Now down in here, there's a little metal snap ring that goes around and just kind of holds the seal in place. So we should be able to get a small screwdriver in there. Oh, I can feel you guys yelling at me already. I'm putting my safety glasses on. Here we go. Delete your comment. We're just going to be as ginger as possible. Try to get under this snap ring without marring anything up. Well, after an absurdly long amount of time, the snap ring is out. I'm going to put it as an F in my BMW engineering review booklet, because why wouldn't you just use a snap ring that has 2 little eyelets in there that you can get in there with snap ring pliers, easily compress it and put it where it needs to go, let it out. It's just a bad design to use that style. So now that that's out, we have clean, easy access to our bushing. So what I'm going to do now is use a big screwdriver. I'm going to put a little bit of a rag on one side. I'm going to just gently start to work my way around. Just like that. There she is. Old seal is out. One thing to note is there is a little washer in here as well. I've seen places online that some people put these on top of the fork seal, some people put them on the bottom. Apparently it doesn't really matter. I'm going to keep mine on the bottom because that's where it was. So I'm going to do a full clean out of this whole entire tube. Make sure everything is really nice and clean, no obvious issues anywhere, and then we'll be ready to tap in our new seal. Everything is nice and clean and we are ready for reassembly. So I got my new seals over here. There is a direction. It's kind of open on the side that goes down, nice and closed on the side that goes up. I am going to put just the smallest amount of grease around this just to help it slide into place. Nothing crazy, like the thinnest layer you can possibly do, but just enough to aid us in installation. So I'm going to put it on here, start to press it in by hand, and then I'm going to be using the back side of a 1.5 inch socket and a rubber mallet to tap it the rest of the way. My tapping knocked over the camera, but it's all nice and sealed in there. We're ready for our snap ring to go back in. Installation is significantly easier than removal. Just got to make sure it's all the way down. There we go, snaps into place. Everything looks good. We're ready for our dust seal. Luckily mine seems to be in pretty good shape. To be honest with you, if I were to do this over again, I probably would have ordered some new dust seals as well. Kind of surprised they didn't come with these, but I think these are going to be just fine. Tap this back into place, and believe it or not, this is ready to go back on the bike. Reinstallation should be as simple as us just sliding it back up. And then just take your time at this point to make sure you don't tear any of the boots or that new seal. Slowly work it into place. We're ready to go all the way up to our fork brace. I'll just kind of finger tighten these two. Perfect. So what I'm going to do now is tighten those fork brace bolts all the way down, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to go ahead and knock out the entire left side as well. And I'll bring you guys back when it's time to kind of reassemble the whole thing. I'm going back together with everything now. I went ahead and connected our gaiters and everything back up. Everything seems to be moving nice and freely. Just putting our Allen bolts on the bottom down here. I got to look up what the torque spec is on these. I want to go through and, obviously torque everything to the proper settings as we go. For fork oil, that's easy to say. I'm going to be running 10 weight on both sides. If I'm not mistaken, one side on these bikes does like compression and the other one does rebound. So they are technically different, and they kind of work in conjunction with each other. From the factory, I believe they have 2 different weight oils on both sides. Doing some research, kind of figuring it out. There's a lot of opinion. There's also a lot of different riding styles, weight, how much you're carrying as far as cargo, or you're doing off-road. That all kind of varies based on what you're doing and what kind of oil you should run with. So I'm personally just going to run 10 weight on both sides. That seems to be the nice kind of middle ground and should be perfectly fine for most of the riding that this bike is going to see. Ready for fork oil, and the book calls for, in the right fork, between 430 and 450 cc's, the left fork 400 to 420 cc. So got my measuring cup out. I'm just going to use this long, thin funnel. That'll go straight into those little Allen bolts we pulled off earlier. I'm going to fill them up to the correct amount. And then what I'm going to do is jump on the bike, grab the front brake, and kind of run the front suspension through a couple of compression cycles. That's what it recommends doing, just to kind of burp the system, so to speak, get some of the air out, and then we can throw our little Allen kind of drain plug, fill plug, I guess you would call it, on the top. And just like that, the fork tube seals are wrapped up. These were super easy. I'm glad, because I was a little bit hesitant just because I had never done them on this particular make and model before, but they're way easier than even like classic Honda ones. I mean, just super, super simple. Could probably knock it out again in 30-ish minutes, start to finish. So if you have this maker model and you need fork tube seals, don't hesitate. It's an easy, afternoon, drink a couple beers, have some fun project. Nothing to be intimidated by for sure. So what I need to knock out for the rest of the day is I need to get my speedometer out. Because if you remember from my test ride video, it was very sticky and kind of bounced around all over the place. And we also figured out that our tripometer was not working at all. So I actually was lucky enough to find a guy here in Austin that is one of the top BMW motorcycle gauge repair people in the world. People literally send him gauges from Europe and all kinds of stuff, and he is probably 15 minutes away from my house, which is pretty wild. So I already talked to him. He's going to do a rebuild for us. I just need to pull the gauge out so I can actually deliver it to him. I ended up pulling out the tachometer as well. I'm not sure if the restoration he's going to do is purely internal, like mechanical restoration, or if there's some cosmetic work he's going to do as well. If there is some cosmetic work, I didn't want the speedometer to look freshened up and then the tach still be kind of faded and yellow. Hopefully he's able to clean them both up. I'd like them to look as new as possible, but at least worst case scenario, I want them to match. The process itself wasn't too terribly complicated. I just kind of loosened up this side fairing, pulled off our windshield so that I can kind of move everything around. And then it was just a lot of me wedging my hand in there to undo the speedometer cable and stuff. I wasn't able to film any of it because it's all in the dark, kind of buried behind there. So you'll have to take my word on it that it wasn't too terribly bad to pull it out. Well, that's where I'm going to call it on this one, guys. Once I get those gauges back, I mean, this thing's pretty much to the finish line. There really isn't much left on it to do, which is really exciting because that means we can move on to the next full build. So this bike will be a full tear down, engine out, frame modifications, suspension modifications. I mean, I'm going to touch every nut and bolt of this bike. And it's a model I've never done before, so I'm sure you guys are going to be excited to see that. I'm excited to push myself out of my comfort zone and kind of learn some new skills, so I hope you guys stick around for that project. It'll be revealed very, very soon. I appreciate you guys watching this one, as always, and I'll see you guys on the next one.